When and why would you decant Pinot Noir?
That's a great question because in Burgundy they never decant Pinot Noir, and I think that's more about tradition and about the delicacy of the varietal. In our case, we decant younger wines, and again it goes back to really more complex chemistry. What are the components in wine that allows it to sort of show its best light? And one of those things is levels of dissolved oxygen. So here's the sort of mug old-fashioned root beer chemistry lesson today. We know that wines that are completely oxidized have about 7 milligrams per liter of dissolved O2. And we also know that wines that are completely open aromatically have about 4 milligrams of dissolved oxygen per liter. And typically most American wines are bottled between 2 and 4 milligrams. And so those wines are pretty much ready to go and wouldn't require a lot of decanting. Wines that have, say, less than 1 milligram are going to be pretty closed and not show much. And so those wines will require aeration in order to lift up the aromatics. In other words, we're going to take a young wine that has maybe a 0.5 milligram per liter. We're going to put it in a decanter. We're going to have to wait for the sulfur to actually bind up with the oxygen before that dissolved level starts to raise to get to 4. And that's why we put wine in a decanter and we swirl it. And that's the reason why. That's really the important factor. Most winemakers and indeed most professors don't talk about levels of dissolved oxygen, but it's really a critical part to really carrying those aromatics. And I just realized that we ingest everything as it relates to oxygen. When we cook food, it's not in a vacuum. We actually eat potatoes and there's air mixed with those potatoes. And without that oxygen, the food wouldn't taste quite right. We open up bottles of wine that have been in a reductive state inside a bottle for a long period of time, and they will smell funky initially, and we put it in a decanter and we allow some oxygen to get into that wine, and then all of a sudden it opens up. And we've all had that experience where, well, when I first opened the bottle of wine it wasn't that good, but man, after sitting in my glass for 10 or 15 minutes, it just really sort of opened up, became really fantastic. And it's because there's a level of oxygen that's sort of taking it to that 4 milligram stage. And so that's why it's important to be decanting wine, particularly young wines. Older wines require less decanting, and the decanting issue for older wines is really separating sediment. But for younger wines, it's exposure to oxygen to bring them to that level where they're at their kind of peak.